Hey traders, happy Monday. Welcome to the Weekly Outlook. This is Chris Pulver here. Let's talk about all things stocks, forex, cryptos. The Weekly Outlook for November 23rd through the 27th. It is Thanksgiving week, so we will have a holiday shortened week, but take note of what happens during holiday trading weeks. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time going into the charts today, discussing what we can expect. Basically, I've said this for many, many years. When we're not really watching, the markets tend to still be moving. Even though it's a holiday week and banks will be closed, the forex market is still going to be open. If we have had any significant trends or breakouts over the last week or so, or something starts to kick in this week, holiday trading is oftentimes a low volume environment, and we tend to see some drifts and continuations without balance. So we're going to take a look at the charts today, and I'll go through, where we're at for futures, stocks, what happened from last week to now, what we can expect. We're still sitting in a lot of indecision areas on the major U.S. indices. Like I said, the forex market will be open this entire week, so if we have any notable breakouts and trends, it's likely going to see some continuation through this week with low volume trading. So last week, movers, the Dow Jones finished flat for the week. We had negative 0.74% on the week. The S&P was pretty much the same, negative 0.75. The NASDAQ squeaked out a fractional win at 0.22, so essentially flat for the week for all the major indices. If you looked at the weekly outlook last week, I've got all of these charts bracketed inside of a post-election candle. Lots of indecision on all three major U.S. markets. Bitcoin continues to be the talk of the town. It closed last week around $18,600, up nearly 15% for the week. The big question I think on a lot of Bitcoin watchers' mind is, will we hit $20,000 again for 2020? Is that another top? Is it going to blow through this? Has it really, sustained the run versus having this bubble look? We will find out. But it's certainly been interesting to have some, cryptocurrencies in a portfolio. Ethereum closed above $500. Litecoin's on its way. Ripple's, getting above that 30 cents area. And Bitcoin has been, really ripping since $10,000, straight up towards 18. But again, big plays from PayPal, Square, other major banks endorsing it. Cryptocurrencies are not being denied by central banks, so that's good. Doesn't mean it's going to be the future, but it's certainly being looked at as a little bit more legitimate. Day-to-day transactions are accepting Bitcoin as payment, and now everybody's talking about it again. And as far as having growth and opportunity, again, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and trading, if there is speculation in it, the speculation is we've seen an incredible amount of growth this year in cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is well up over 100% for the year. That beats gold, that beats the indices, even with the NASDAQ up, 60 some percent from the low in March to the high of September. We've essentially seen, a 30% gain in the year. But the 2020 story continues. COVID continues to be a very real threat. The CDC is advising that, you're not necessarily canceling Thanksgiving, but, look, use Skype, use Zoom, connect with friends and family, give them a call, talk to them on the phone. Something we never do anymore. But be safe out there for Thanksgiving, and hopefully this year, especially for being a trader, being an investor, very thankful that working from home has been nothing out of the ordinary, and taking advantage of good opportunities when the markets present themselves, which has been pretty much endless. Like everywhere we looked for stock trading this year, endless opportunities. If you have the courage to buy back in March and April, everything paid. We're looking at some good opportunities ahead. Forex market's been pretty steady. We've had some interesting volatility shifts from low to high, back to low. And I will continue to monitor the Forex markets to see, are we going to, again, transition into a slightly higher volatility environment? What type of trends do we have towards year end? Is the market going to be after some type of target? Will we have, major profit taking by the end of the year? So, Forex is very much me making position trades that I'm in. I'll talk about that today, as well as having some robots running on the sidelines that continue to do what they do, which is when we have these low volatility environments, these robots do a really nice job of buying low, selling high, taking some really conservative profits that don't involve me micromanaging. So I have found a way to carve out some nice pips and gains, steadily through the last couple of months, even though I haven't been trading a ton manually. Meanwhile, I'm building some decent positions. In fact, today I'm looking at about a $2,000 swing in my favor. So that's all good. So anyway, let's get to it. Let's talk to the charts. It's the weekly outlook for the 23rd through the 27th of November. And happy Thanksgiving. So when we get into the charts, understand there's risk in trading. Please and always use trade capital only. Do not trade with money you cannot afford to lose. If you're following them out there on social media, if you're watching this video, do me a quick favor, subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell so you can get this video. I premiere these videos on Monday. I'll have other videos coming into my YouTube channel, and really important, smash that like button for me. I would really appreciate that. And that's how you can find me on YouTube. Just type in my name. Same thing with Facebook, Twitter at PulverChris, Instagram at pulver.chris. Okay, let's get into the charts here. I want to take a look and see where we are at for the indecision areas that I talked about over the last couple of weeks. So this is post-election. So we had our election support as things were selling off going into the U.S. election. We rallied election week, gapped higher, and we are now inside of this candle. So this to me is the next real breakout area, and it's here we are during a holiday week. As I said, I expect there to be some type of breakout, some type of trend, continuation, drift, but we have to go somewhere else. We could spend this entire week and still be inside of this, and there's really not a lot of trading that I'm going to take inside of this indecision. This indecision in the U.S. indices is also translating into weaker, slower volatility day to day in the Forex market. All right. So if we're not seeing much follow through, we're not really getting anything other than day to day churns. We're going to get some really tight ranges, maybe 30 to 50 pips on some of those Forex pairs. Stocks are producing minimum movement as well. So this is where I see the next big leg going. It will be interesting this week as things kind of take off into holiday mode. Are we actually going to see price breaking higher and going somewhere, breaking lower and going somewhere? I don't know. Maybe the markets, even though the holidays will bring on bank closures for Thursday, we might have some low volume trending on Thursday and Friday in the Forex market. But is price going to go somewhere as we go into trading on Wednesday, on Friday, going into next week? If you look at this Dow Jones, this is the DIA, the ETF that follows the Dow Jones. Are we above 299, essentially above 300, or are we down below 292? Watch for this price action to break above or below this post-election indecision. All right, same thing on the SPY, the ETF that follows the S&P 500. Are we going to break above 364? Are we going to break back below 350? This is where the breakout would occur. Don't be fooled by this. If we see price closing here, okay, fine, but we better see a day of follow through, because if we see a breakout and a day of indecision, that's a really easy trade. You can sell that move back down, or you can buy a breakout above and see where price is really willing to go. So essentially the trade would be something like this. If we break out, I am looking for a chance to see this continuation run. I know that after 12 years of bullishness, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The market would be irrational. But if this is the environment that we are creating, and we have essentially a financial engineered backstop, we have equities that are really the only source of yield in the investor world right now, what is going to cause the market to really drop? Yes, COVID cases. Okay, fine. I get it. And COVID is not going away until we essentially have major distribution on these promising vaccines from Moderna and from Pfizer. AstraZeneca came out today with about a 70% effective vaccine, so that's not getting the same type of following that Pfizer and Moderna has created. But if we break higher, this might seem irrational. You might have a lot of naysayers out there that are saying the market's going to drop. But if we rally another 5%, 7%, 10% to finish the year, we did the same thing back in 2019. Take a look. Before we crashed in March of this year, we had a rally from August all the way to December. This was our end in December. We finished on a high note, started off on a little shaky grounds, rallied back up through February. Of course, COVID brought in this crash. Remember, this is what's so weird. In fact, this weekend, I made my wife watch the movie The Big Short. I love that movie. Here's what happened, right? This move right here, this drop, was not labeled as a financial crisis. It was labeled as a health crisis. And so even though this clearly happened and we saw 30 to 40% sell-offs across the board, financially speaking, it was being painted as financially we're healthy. Financially, everything's fine. Financially, everything's stable. And yes, central banks stepped up to the plate and they produced bailout package and stimulus programs and they slashed rates like crazy. And it produced, really one of the largest inflows of new money into the markets that we have seen in many, many years. So here we are once again with, those that have are investing and benefiting. Those that have not are wondering, am I going to keep my job? Continued claims are still 700,000 a week, 800,000 a week in the U.S. I know that Europe lockdowns are getting worse and worse right now. So it's not fair, right? Whatever's happening right now is not fair. But here's my thoughts. I'm just going to follow the chart. We keep talking about this indecision. We keep talking about these technicals. Look, I don't care if this market goes another 5 to 10% higher. I'm cautiously bullish on it, but I will be looking to participate. If you want to see some risk on trading, this is probably what's going to happen in the stock market. If we're going to see some risk off trading, this is probably what's going to happen in the stock market, right? If this is dropping, I will be long volatility. I will be looking to buy some in the money puts on the SPY, possibly following the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ as well. I'll be looking to buy the VIX and trade volatility to the upside. All right, how dramatic is this drop off? I don't know. Maybe it just comes back down to these range levels, and we're just looking at range trading for the remainder of the year. Okay, so back to the subject of holiday trading. If this week's lighter week, if this week's holiday shortened week does not force price to break out above these highs or lows, it's going to be another quiet week. If it doesn't force us to break above this high or low, it's going to be another quiet week. If we don't break above, and this is actually the QQQ, which follows the NASDAQ, this is obviously stuck a little bit more intermediately. This is the September swing from high to low. We had a higher low, but lower highs. So we're kind of stuck between, these levels once again. If we don't break higher or lower, or in case, let's say we drift higher with tech this week and we see a rejection here and we sell it later. There's still a lot of structure we can trade, which means there's opportunity. But I'd say this opportunity for me right now is not really on the long-term horizon. This investment opportunity, these trading opportunities for me are very much short-term. A nice way to kind of, pad the stats, build some cash, grab some short-term profits over the coming months, and see if we can close the year out strong, but, make good trades. All right, so that's what I'm following in the indices. I'm following the volatility as well. You can see this indecision on the VIX. We had our pre-election move right in here. This was actually August and September when the stock market slid. We had our pre-election move where the stock market was rallying from low to high, and that's why the VIX went from this high to low. Now, what's interesting is we're sitting right back here towards major support. Now, if we see this jump to the upside, I would have to believe that if support holds on the VIX around $20 and this runs back to 34, that will be creating a sell-off in the stock market, and it's probably going to be fast, right? Look at how sizable that candle is. If we have something equal to that, some big bullish day where we have just a big sell-off in the stock market for a single day, but this rallies from 20 to 35. That is a big chunk of profit opportunity on the VIX. And so I'm playing instruments like the VIXY, instruments like the VXX, looking at some call options on the VIX. Okay, so playing volatility, of course. Hopefully that will be something that pays out nicely by the end of the year. Some of the Forex pairs, let's talk about Forex pairs and go back to this holiday drift. Okay, Aussie Cad, let's take a look at this from the daily chart. Okay, Aussie Cad, I'm still looking at this overall. We have this, massive low to high. This is a currency pair that's typically very, very balanced. Traders with me in the room this year made some pretty good cash on the way up for sure. Once we started closing out some gains, once we started taking out all these points, expecting some pullbacks, we really just had it drifting higher. So we had some nice buy trades down in here with these lows. We had some nice sell trades. We worked our way through back to 9,200. Now I am looking for some consolidation behavior. So even if we come back to these equal highs on Aussie Cad, I'm looking for this area to continue to consolidate. Right, so I'm looking for range conditions, but we're nearing a point where we could be selling Aussie Cad fairly high. That level is around 9,600 to around 9,700. So in this 96 to 9,700 window, I'm looking for indecision, bearishness. I'm looking for, confirmations with my indicators to give me some sell signals, some sell zones to start shorting the Aussie Cad back down. As far as a holiday theme, right now we might see a very low volume drift back to the upside, but I'm interested to see, does it start pushing back down? I'm really looking at a sell trade on the Aussie Cad at this time. Aussie Swiss, this one is still range bound. So where would I expect this during the holidays? Well, we have some indecision happening right now. Let me draw this a little bit straighter here. We have some indecision happening right here. Okay, so are we going to stay very quiet this week on the Aussie Swiss? Do we have one subtle little drift to the upside through the holidays and then coming back into a full week of trading next week, do we start to drop down? It's very possible that the market maintains this structure on the Aussie Swiss and we look to sell this nice and high. Okay, Aussie Yen, pretty similar. You can see we have structure high, structure low. What would I do in this pair right now? Probably not much. I'm currently selling with a robot because I have a nice bearish signal there. If I had this follow through, coming back down into equal lows, I'll take some profit. Otherwise, you can see that we have resistance here, support here. And I'm looking to essentially sell high and buy low for right now. Aussie New Zealand. This pair, actually, this is one of my favorite pairs, and traders know this. There's a big story around the Aussie New Zealand that I love, and that is the fact that we've created a nice inefficiency at 108, and my plan is to do this. I'm going to slowly and conservatively level myself into some buy areas. I actually started buying this around 106, and I'm looking to level myself back in. If it comes down to 102, 103, that's totally fine. And I'm going to look to work my way back into a trade towards 10800. Now, this could also be setting up something much bigger than that. We could have this setting up with a pattern that would actually be setting in for a higher low, and medium term to long term, I'd say give this thing maybe 6 months, we might end up back up towards 113 or 1.14. Okay, so I'm looking for a, let's say 6 to 12 month outlook on Aussie New Zealand to be at 1.14. But to start, we still need to get some higher lows to form. My first real target is to build some positions in here and take some profit at 108. If it ends up going higher than that, next high is up above 110. If it gets higher than that, we're looking for this continuation towards 113 and 114. So that's a really big trade. For me, that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to require some patience, but watch this one really carefully. As far as the holiday trend, I'm going to keep theming back to that. We have been in a bit of a downtrend on this Aussie New Zealand. So I wouldn't suspect that this week we're going to see the bulls all of a sudden come back and start winning. I think that right now the path of least resistance is that this Aussie New Zealand will stay weaker and continue to slide. This might be a trade that for the end of the year is actually pushing lower. And then we start out Q1 of next year and we start seeing how this starts to build its way back up to 108. So if you're with me on this trade buying right now, I said this that we're early. I know that I'm early to the trade. I'm not timing the bottom here, but I do know that again, I'm confident we're going to get back to 108. Okay? So as far as a holiday drift, this might be a continuation to the downside. If anyone's interested in some short-term activity, maybe looking for some retracements to sell, any type of retracements or rallies to sell, and see if this will head down towards 104, 10300, come back in some of these inefficient levels that we created back in April. Aussie Dollar. Aussie Dollar is very similar to the other pairs. Watch the high right here. I'm really interested in selling Aussie Dollar off of the high. Let me change that color to black. And this is a really strong level of support. So we essentially have resistance at 7,400 and support at 7,000 going into this week with the holiday. You can see that we have some indecision happening right here. Do we drift a little bit higher towards the 7,400 mark and then start to see indecision and sell it back off? Look for these structures to play out. And really, this does fit really nicely with, if we see the VIX holding those supports at 20 and it runs up to 35, we will probably see this Aussie pair, because it's predominantly a risk on currency pair. If we see the VIX rallying, that is risk off, and we will likely see the Aussie reflect that. So expect some resistance to hold on some of these Australian dollar pairs. Okay, anything on Cad Swiss? This one's pretty quiet. Medium term, I still like Cad Swiss to the upside. Basically, I'm just doing this. I'm looking to buy these support levels, and I'm looking to take profit at these resistance levels. So I'm buying low, and I'm looking to take some profit on Cad Swiss. There's not really a massive breakout on this one. I'll stand aside. Cad Yen also very indecisive. You can see lots of support in this area here and lots of resistance in there. So you can see the range structure on the Cad Yen. Surprisingly for a yen pair, it actually does have some pretty good structure. What I'm seeing right now is I'm not trading this thing in the middle. I'll look for support to buy. I'll look for resistance to sell. Okay, Swiss Yen. Did take some profit on Swiss Yen to the downside. We hit 113.74. I'm looking for this thing to continue to slide a little bit lower, making lower highs. Let's see if we can get towards 112. Euro Aussie, again, really quiet, lots of range bound trading. I would watch this level very closely. This is around 6,100, and we have some intermediate resistance around 6,500. So we have a lot of range conditions out there that we're dealing with in the Forex market. Aussie Cad or Euro Cad, same thing. Euro Swiss, still a lot of indecision. This one I still have a medium-term plan on. I think this is a great candle to build off of. So we have some indecision. I'm hoping this holds as a bull flag and continues to run up towards 110. We might have to have a pullback first. We might pull back here into 107.50 and then look for a swing opportunity towards 110 or 110.50 on that Euro Swiss. Euro Pound, I did take some profits this morning on a sell trade on the Euro Pound. That's worked out fine. I do expect this one to fall a little bit lower. I'm just trying to decide on whether or not this just keeps going lower. And there's a possibility that we see some continuation. This has been a real mess since September. We had this big weakness in the September pound move, and it started to fade it right back down as the October 15th deadline was really just kicked down the road with this hard Brexit. Didn't really happen, and it's still ongoing. So right now, if we take out these lows and start to pull back, expect there to be more indecision, just like we had over here. But if you give this, again, maybe 3 to 6 months, I would expect that the pound versus the euro is going to be somewhere down into this 8,400 region. All right, so we might stay range bound between 87 and 80. I'd say 87 and 9,000 for some range trading. But if we start to drift and go lower, we have room to fall into 85 and 8,400. Okay, anything else? Euro Yen, don't really love this one. Euro New Zealand, some indecision. Actually, you know what? This one has been trending somewhat decently to the downside. We're at roughly 7,100. I was telling traders if we get into 7,000 and possibly start to form some levels between 7,000, which I'll go ahead and mark right here, and 6,800. So I'm looking for some lows to form in this area. We do have a lot of support here right around this 6,600 level on the Euro New Zealand as well. Now, what I would expect is we had years of range trading on the Euro New Zealand. Now, after this, crazy kind of COVID spike up and down, the market's basically starting the same process over again. So I wouldn't be surprised right now if we see some of this holiday drift allowing the Euro New Zealand to keep sliding lower towards this 6,800 zone. I might even tell traders this week that, you know what, maybe instead of trying to pick the bottom, we start waiting for a trend line break, and this might come down into 6,600. So I'm going to go ahead and extend this line a little bit lower towards 66. What I'll be looking for is something like this. Nothing crazy, nothing complicated, but can we just simply break a trend line? If we can break this trend line right there, then we can start looking at, building some small positions off of the right side of the trend line. We can break, get a retest of the back side of the trend line, and then trade this thing back up. But right now, I would suspect that on the left side of the trend line, it's easier for price to keep drifting lower. We don't have a lot of news this week on the economic calendar. We do, however, have some Euro news this morning. PMI numbers coming out of the Eurozone. We have RBNZ Governor Orr speaking on Tuesday evening. It's about the financial stability report, I believe. Yes, and you can see that the rest of the week is pretty light. FOMC meeting minutes. Thursday is Thanksgiving, bank holiday for the U.S. So it will be light trading overall, which is why, again, I keep emphasizing make sure we're paying attention to the kind of structure in these potential holiday drifts to keep running. So I would look at the Euro New Zealand continuing to head down a little bit lower this week. Okay, Euro Dollar. Euro Dollar, I am short, and I'm looking to stay short with this resistance at 1.20, which is right there. And support, we have equal lows here around 1.16. So ideally, and I do have some sell positions in that are small on the Euro Dollar, just kind of watching to see if this is a rising wedge and it starts to break back down towards 1600. I'm looking at this as a small position. I took a small position here. I'm going to look at a small position here to sell, stop area above 1.20, and see if this will stay in a range. All right, so if the Euro Dollar does slide back to 1600, I'll be taking some of those sell profits as long as we do not break above 1.20. That is Euro Dollar. Pound pairs. Pound Aussie is taken off to the upside. I was telling traders for the last 2 weeks, let's look for some buying opportunities on the Pound Aussie. I would look at this one to head back up towards 1.90. That's pretty much just a symmetrical push. There's a low to high swing. Look for a symmetrical push that should put us right around 1.90. So I'm staying long this week on the Pound Aussie. Again, you can look for this day to day. We can look for some systems to see some bullish confirmation and stay long in the pound Aussie. Pound CAD is starting to climb back, but there is resistance ahead right around 7,600. I'll go ahead and mark that right there. Lots of resistance around 7,600. So I'm going to go ahead and stay probably out of the pound CAD for right now, unless we see some resistance forming right at 76. Pound Swiss also looking bullish. I have a robot that took a buy trade. You can see that little signal right there. This is my Trend Seeker Pro. Took a buy trade and it is in profit. Currently had 2 or 3 positions running, and we should be in profit on all of them, which is fantastic. Pound Yen, I do have the same thing, a similar signal to the upside. Again, we're looking at some pound strength right now. Take a look at the currency strength. This is live at 10 o'clock this morning. Pound is the strongest currency pair of the morning. We're seeing a nice little run in the US dollar as well. Actually, just happened in the last few minutes, which is pretty nice. In fact, now I've had a $4,000 swing in profit for the morning. So I will go ahead and take that, and that's especially nice when it's in my favor. Pound New Zealand coming off of equal lows, a nice level support. I know traders were eager to buy the Pound New Zealand here. If we're going to maintain this kind of low for the week, we could see some pushing to the upside. Maybe look for some pound strength this week. Okay, pound dollar. This is going to be a really critical spot for the pound US dollar. This is probably a pair that I'm going to watch individually from the other ones. If we have pound Aussie moving higher, pound CAD moving higher, pound Swiss moving higher, pound Yen moving higher, pound New Zealand moving higher, why would I want to short the pound dollar? Right? So here's what's really critical about the pound US dollar. We need to stay here if we're going to see the pound all of a sudden sell back off or the dollar get much, much stronger. It needs to happen right around this 3,400 to 3,500 window. If the pound is stronger and the whole basket is moving favoring the pound, I would not fight the pound dollar. In fact, this could easily work its way back up into some fresh highs. If we break above 35, then we're looking at possibly a big continuation towards 1.40. The pound US dollar tends to do a really nice job of going towards these major round numbers. It likes to use 50s and zeros. So if we're at 3,400 and we reject off of that, we're probably going to settle in at 3,350 or 3,300. If we break above 3,500, we're probably going towards 3,550, 3,600. And if we're breaking through those levels, there's really not much stopping this until we hit 4,000 again. In fact, take a look at this. An incredible pocket from back here in 2018. That is a very gettable zone on this pound US dollar. So if we break above 3,500, the pound is likely going to continue towards 4,000. If we, of course, reject off of this level, then we look for a chance to sell this, and this would fit the theme of a lot of currency pairs, which is range trading. Just identify those major levels of support and resistance. Okay, New Zealand Cad. I am short New Zealand Cad. Okay, now why am I short? Because this is one of my favorite commodity-based currency pairs. If we do have a trade on this one, we could see price coming up towards 9,200, and I've already prepared for that. I've already let traders know in my room that I'm short around 9,000. I'm upside down a few pips on this one. If we end up finding resistance at 9,200, that's fine. I'm going to work my way back through a trade around 8,900. I also have some fantastic daily harmonic patterns. Look for that in my YouTube channel. Another video I'll be adding is one of my favorite strategies over 12 plus years of trading, looking at harmonics, pivots, and overbought, oversold conditions with divergence. So that might not make any sense to some of you out there, but look for that video. Harmonic patterns are amazing, especially on higher time frames. They give us some really incredible, like very accurate turning points in the market. So I'm looking for, those high probability highs and lows. These patterns are forming within calculated methods and natural behavior of the market. And when we have a combination of those plus targets and pivots that are available, I look at pockets as well. We have overbought, oversold conditions and divergence. I put all these things together to this nice little recipe for some high probability trades. So I'm going to do a video on that and put that under my Keep It Seriously Simple video series. It's going to look like this, and I'll just call this probably favorite harmonic strategy or something like that. So look for that video coming very soon. Okay, so anyway, back to this New Zealand CAD. Path of least resistance is still bullish. However, I'm going to go ahead and stay through this trade. I really like this idea of shorting it once again around 92. We have a ton of resistance here around 92 to 92.50. I'm working my way back down into 8,900 minimum. My first target here is 89. I have levels with my larger harmonic patterns that are bearish, looking for trades back into 87 as well as 8,500. So I do think there's a lot of downside potential on the New Zealand CAD, but I'm just sitting here right around 9,000 with a couple of small trades, and I'll sell it again around 92 if it's offered. If it's not, I'll take a couple of trades and profit at 8,900 and call it good. New Zealand Swiss, this one's drifting a little bit higher. Another really nice pattern, which would be something like this. This is a rising wedge that could break down very nicely to fulfill this pocket. There's also harmonic patterns that are calling for bearish price action, but be careful. New Zealand Yen, New Zealand Swiss have very similar setups. However, this being a holiday week, having a lower volume move, unless we start to see a very obvious bearish breakdown, I'd say like today and tomorrow, I would not be forcing sell trades on this because we will probably drift a little bit higher. Wait for a trend line to break. Wait for something like this. Wait for these extremes to set up even more overbought, and then we start looking to sell it at a higher price. So in case the New Zealand Swiss runs a little bit higher, you can see that the posture is bullish. If we keep drifting, this might be a one-sided move. This is what holiday trading does. Okay, so we have the posture. The market's not really doing much. It's easier for the market to say, you know what, the bulls really kicked it into high gear right here. If there are no bears present to balance this, it's just easier for price to drift higher. And that's what we might be looking at here on the New Zealand Swiss and New Zealand Yen. So I still think the sell trade is great and it's an awesome setup, but to get there, I want some confirmation. So I'm watching this type of structure very carefully. If we break this rising wedge, then sure, let's look for a selling opportunity. All right, but if we keep drifting higher or we are reluctant to break that structure, don't force those trades unless you're willing to either get out right away when it goes against you or trade smaller and work your way through the position. New Zealand Yen, you can see the similarity. Lots of indecision right here. Are we going to break higher and drift higher on the New Zealand Yen? We came from this support level. This was a, kind of during the election week type move, post-election breakout to the upside. Are we going to sustain that break, or is this going to hold this level, break back down, and come back into the range? Price will have to tell us. We'll have to monitor the New Zealand Yen and other currency pairs day to day. New Zealand Dollar. This is another one. I was looking for some pockets around 7,000 to 7,100. I am very interested in this pair to short around this area. Okay, currently I'm not touching it. I'm going to wait. I had a really nice head and shoulders pattern right here that I thought was going to play out. It did not. It broke through and went a little bit higher. So be it. So what I'm looking for is just let it drift. If it's going to drift a little bit higher, it makes sense to me, but I'm looking for a nice trend line break, confirmation, start looking for some price patterns up here around 7,200, and then start looking to work its way back down. There's a nice pocket in here around 6,300 and 6,250. Also, the RBNZ starts to speak up a little bit when 7,000 is hit because they don't like their currency pair and the exchange rate that high. Dollar CAD. Sitting around 3,000 support, resistance around 3,350. You can kind of stay within the range for right now. There's lows at 3,000 and there's highs around 3,350. Dollar Swiss, we're at 9,131. Come on, Dollar Swiss. I've got some interest on this pair to run towards 9,300. So it's been a mess, but hopefully we will see this one run to the upside, hit that pocket on the daily and weekly chart, holding this support level around 9,000. So come on, this is one of those positions where I'd love it to pay out. It'd be great to pay out sooner than later, but I'm going to go ahead and hold on to this one until we hit 93.50 at a minimum. Dollar Yen, just reluctant to really make a sustained break below 1.0 or 104, and I just keep telling traders I'm watching this pair, but like kind of with one eye. I mean, I don't really like it. I know that it's really tough to follow. It breaks below 104. It looks like it's a clear shot to 101.50, and it just refuses to go much lower. So it's probably going to do something like this. It's just going to be really messy, really choppy, and force a bigger decision later. That bigger decision might be something like this, where it forces more of a wedge pattern, and then we'll have to deal with either a big break to the upside or another collapse to the downside. So I'd say if you're patient on Dollar Yen, we'll pay attention to it. We'll watch it in the background. In my trading room, we go through this every single day. So we end up covering this pair. So we're not going to miss it, but just don't chase it. I think this one's going to set up for us for a bigger run, and we'll have some type of 300 to 400 pip breakout or bigger on the Dollar Yen. Anything on the other pairs, peso, exotic pairs, path of least resistance, I'd stay out of some of these for now. Dollar index coming off some pretty important support here right around 11,865. We have resistance at 12,150, 12,200 pockets. A lot of range trading, right? So we have lows here. Could we come off of those lows and find This is range low to range high. This would be a perfect match for the inverse of that being the euro dollar. If the euro dollar holds that 120 resistance and it sells back down to 116, then the dollar index is probably going to make that run from the lows to highs. Nice inverse correlation. If we see the dollar index rallying here, we should also see the dollar Swiss rallying towards 93.50. So watch those correlations nicely. Wow. So, hey, I've been doing the weekly outlook here for over 30 minutes, and I wanted to make sure you understand. This is a holiday week. Okay, holiday trading is something to pay attention to. This is what happens. If we see some posture in the markets, and that posture is a trend or a breakout, the likelihood of it continuing during the holiday is pretty high. So this is not a time to call the top or the bottom, all right? But having said that, look at how many ranges I identified today in this weekly outlook. You've got the Dow Jones, the SPY, the NASDAQ, the VIX. All of them are stuck with some indecision ranges. A lot of currency pairs are reflecting that. So I would suspect that if we still have range structure and it's near resistance or near support, we're going to look to trade off those levels because that's likely where price is going to maintain the structure. But if we're already drifting lower, already drifting higher, I would suspect that we're going to have some continuation on those this week. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. Leave a comment here for the YouTube video. A couple of things this week. I know I'm just going to do some plugs here. Morning Brew is a newsletter I read every single day. I love it. I'll have a link of that in the description section if you want to. It's a free newsletter. It comes to your email every single day. Good, quick to the point, fun to read, easy to read, financial news. If you're interested, there's a link down in the description page. Also, TradingView, a platform that I've used for probably the last 10 years. They're having an awesome special this week for Black Friday. And if you're interested in TradingView, I've got a link also provided in the description. I've got some education down there as well. If you're interested in trading price patterns, market structure, stuff like that, let me know. If you need anything, leave me a comment. I'm available. It's going to be a shortened week. I'll be still running the trading room Tuesday and Wednesday, off on Thursday. I certainly need a little bit of a mental decompression for the holidays, but I'm looking forward to it. Be safe. Keep the travel to a minimal. Stay inside. Get some exercise. Enjoy some football. All right, traders, I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week, and see you soon. Thanks. Bye.